Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Debatable with our hosts Nina and Kyle.
And for today, we're going to talk about Matterloading. I guess everyone kind of dreads Matterloading. I personally don't find it a lot of fun.
When I was younger, I really hated Matterloading, but now it's just another part of my daily routine.
Oh,
Yeah.
kind of sad.
I think the inspiration for this episode was actually the notion that it was actually debaters that ruined the UK. Remember when I told you that apparently Boris Johnson used to be the president of the Oxford Debate Union? An Oxford alum once argued that actually the reason why UK's politics is so bad is because a bunch of their politicians were debaters, and debate has taught them to speak and argue about things that they don't really know about.
Yeah, if you notice, a lot of debating relies on charisma and your rhetoric. We don't really see a lot of statistics come out anymore or proper nouns. You can actually survive a lot of debates without knowing anything nowadays.
Or maybe you do know things, but you don't know the entire story, so you just twist some facts to support your own argument.
And as much as that is a skill of its own, I don't think it's something we should be promoting or should be encouraging. I don't think it's a good fallback for a lot of debaters, especially if you're starting out. So I guess this episode's for everyone. If you're new to debate, then I think you should get an early start. If you're kind of old, it's never too late to Matterload. So there are 3 reasons why it's important to Matterload, besides the fact that debating is sort of going downhill, especially if you look at elections all around the world. Presidential debates don't even talk about facts so much. If we have the Donald Trumps of the world, we also have the Bolsonaros, we also have the Dutertes, who just kind of say things that benefit them. So the first would be that I guess a lot of motions rely on matter. If you're debating IR or even if you're debating econ, a lot of recent motions actually rely on an understanding of what's happening around the world. So they're not just generic philosophical debates now, but even philosophical debates can help you in terms of grounding certain matter or certain events.
Yeah, that's even for philosophical debates, like hard philo debates. I think it's very useful for people to know about matter, especially when you're talking about analogies or parallelisms that drive particular point across.
Yeah, so that's the second importance. It helps ground your arguments.
Yeah, so a lot of people just say that, and I also believe this, that grounding isn't just examples. It's more of giving a step-by-step analysis and making it clear to the judge how things will work out. But in most cases, actually, it is just as useful for you to have an example that sort of demonstrates the step-by-step analysis that you just gave.
Yeah, and I think the most underrated benefit of matter is sometimes, and I think for the both of us actually, it becomes a lot of good sources for actual arguments.
Yeah, remember that semis that we had about cryptocurrencies being limited to only people who already have a high net worth?
Yeah.
And I was saying on opposition that actually the thing about Bitcoin is that, specifically about Bitcoin, there's a piece of matter that I read in UC Berkeley, I think.
Yeah.
There was this undergraduate thesis that was talking about Bitcoin price volatility and the reasons for Bitcoin price volatility. So government was talking about how, it's so harmful for poor people, impoverished people to invest in Bitcoins and other cryptocurrencies because prices are very volatile. So I was talking about why the volatility comes from in the thesis, it argued that, the price volatility is actually really correlated to, Wikipedia searches. So, what I got from that was that, the more people who engage in trading Bitcoin, the more stable the price becomes. So, I was arguing why, actually, by not excluding impoverished people, you make Bitcoin more stable. And that's an argument that I couldn't have gotten unless I was Matterloaded in that particular topic.
Yeah, we actually got to survive that entire debate using that one particular paper. So there are going to be instances in your life where matter will save you. And I think a lot of instances where, especially in BP, which is the season we're in now, if you're closing, you will win or lose based on the amount of information you're able to provide newly to the debate.
Newly.
Yeah, newly. Is there a better word?
So you have BP, which is about contributions, fresh perspectives, especially from the closing half of the debate. I think matter is oftentimes the way for you to get that fresh perspective, because you're matter loaded on a particular side of the issue.
Yeah, or if you're opening, it's the best way for you to prevent your closing from getting anything better or seeming more important. So there are two ways to matter load that we want to present to you. The first would be what I call passive matter loading, and the second would be active matter loading. So passive matter loading, which is the first one, is my favorite way to matter load because it's matter loading without even trying. And there are many ways to do this. It's a more long-term plan, which I recommend, especially if you're listening to this right now. Since you can multitask, it's just a podcast. I recommend that you incorporate a lot of news sites to your social media. So on Facebook, follow a lot of pages that post news. Even meme pages help sometimes. Like there's this one Kyle's kind of obsessed with at the moment, the one for law.
Yeah, there are law student memes that just like they give you the meme and then they give you the jurisprudence that explains the meme. It's blowing my mind. It's so good.
Right?
I think it's like they're using it to review for the bar, and the concept just blows my mind. It's so good.
And you can do that with your matter as well. Like I'm scrolling my social media, seeing people in their dog videos and their cat videos, and then once in a while I encounter, Boris Johnson is the new Prime Minister of the UK. So I learn information without actively trying to, and sometimes without wanting to. Like there are days just my page is just news articles, but that's a good thing, especially if you're a debater and you're trying to get used to this kind of style. So I think besides incorporating it to your social media like Twitter and Facebook, does Instagram have?
I don't know, I don't use Instagram.
Okay, but if there is, it's time to find out. I guess the second way would be to incorporate it with your general media consumption. So we love watching John Oliver, Patriot Act, and their comedy segments, and they're really funny, and it's a way for us to entertain ourselves, but we're also learning. So if you're not the type that can actively read articles, then perhaps consuming media that actually talks about issues might be a good thing. Like documentaries, comedy skits, movies that actually talk about social issues in depth. So we started watching For the People, which is a show. Was it on Netflix or it's just something?
No, it's not on Netflix. So For the People is a show about private prosecutors and public defenders in the New York court.
Yeah.
And it's really cool because you get to understand a bunch of legal concepts like entrapment, civil procedures, stuff like that. It's cool.
Yeah.
I don't have any other adjective for it.
Yeah.
But I think it's worthwhile to just consume a bunch of different media because a lot of the time you get matter from really unexpected sources. And so even when you're watching anime, for example, remember the time that we were watching Love is War, and then all of a sudden there's chaos theory. All of a sudden we're learning about the Barnum effect. All of a sudden there's IR stuff in it.
Yeah, if you love anime and you're not good at IR, please watch Love is War. It's absolutely my favorite thing because it talks about relationships in the context of war. So it uses a lot of its theories, it uses a lot of analogies that actually explain a lot of sociological and psychological tendencies of people. It's hype.
You also learned a lot from Designated Survivor, right?
Yeah.
House of Cards, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I think it's actually a really good trend that a lot of shows, especially on Netflix, now try to look at social issues. Not all of them are great, like 13 Reasons Why. It is a social issue. You do have a lot of matter about suicide hotlines, etc., but it's not the best. So just be wary, but I think this is an effective method. The third...
Ooh, how about Avatar? Oh, geez, Avatar.
Oh, no.
Avatar,
Here
the
we go.
Last Airbender.
Here we go.
Yeah, sure, Avatar, Legend of Korra. There's so much matter in Eastern philosophy there. The notion that we're all one. And I remember this mantra that I used to recite. Not necessarily, I didn't get it from Avatar, but it's just the same theme. It's Soham Shivoham, which means I am it and it is me, where it is the divine. And in Avatar Season 2, Episode 19,
Oh my god.
the Guru Pathik was talking about how we're all connected and the greatest illusion that we have is division. Right? So, wow, I learned stuff from a kid's show.
Yeah, I think you can learn a lot from kid shows. So that's the second way. The third is just to make it a habit. So there are a lot of apps that give you alerts when there are breaking news or something really important happening in the world. Or if you wake up in the morning, make it a habit to read the news for 5 minutes. I think those small things go a long way. So it doesn't have to be dreadful to matter load. So this passive matter loading is the best way for you to do things without actively intending to.
Okay, so Quartz, you can subscribe to Quartz daily email blasts where they give you a bunch of matter. Vox Sentences also does that. There are Google alerts alerts where like you make a Google alert and every day they're gonna send you an email saying, oh, these are the hot articles for this particular topic. I used to I made a paper once about Burundi. So for 3 entire months I was just getting like daily updates on what's happening in Burundi, because it's really hard to Matterload on Burundi and other Central African countries.
Yeah.
Because they have such limited access to media, to social media. In fact, Burundi, I went on a tangent. Burundi, most of them don't even have electricity. More than half of them are impoverished. Like almost, I don't know, like 80-something% of them still have dirt floors. Stuff like that. So because of these types of alerts and apps, like I got into the habit of reading on the daily, and like you just sometimes get surprised at how much you've read because it's a habit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so nice. So nice. And I also made the habit of chatting to my friends about the new things that I learn.
I'm a victim.
You're a beneficiary. Because like every time I learn something new, I go like, hey Nina, did you know
that Burundi
did you know that Burundi did this? I remember the cryptocurrency matter I just talked about earlier.
Yeah,
like, I remember
I was at 2 a.m. man.
No, I was on a Jeep going, like, I was on Jeep in Commonwealth.
Okay.
And I was just typing, I was sort of like describing the graphs to you.
I mean, that only
text.
benefits people if they have like a Kyle friend who will Matterload them. But if you don't have a Kyle friend,
you should be the Kyle friend.
Yeah, be the Kyle friend. Yeah. And then have someone who is gonna be your Nina who you just send a lot of information to. So that's passive Matterloading. We kind of spent a long time there.
Yeah, on account of my rants. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna apologize.
Okay, so that's the first part. I think the second is the more like common way to Matterload, which is what I like to call active Matterloading. So there are usually 3 methods to do this. The first is to create matter primers. So when you are actively Matterloading, it's best to actually write down or print the information that you read, especially proper nouns, statistics, information that you feel like you won't easily remember. I'm not the type that remembers things in detail, so I usually make matter. There's a few tips for this. So usually when you write matter, don't just write facts. Make sure they're written in the context of controversies. So every time you write an information, make sure that it can benefit a certain argument that you can think of or a certain debate that comes to mind when you think of that country or issue or sub-theme. I would also recommend when you're writing your matter primers to include arguments along the way, especially since a lot of news articles now more or less lean towards particular sides. I would also recommend, as much as I hate it, you should also consume a lot of Fox media because it does help understanding the other side.
I love consuming Fox media for the memes.
For the memes.
but like there are so many programs on Fox where they claim that they're fair by inviting liberals onto their show, and
but
then
don't they just bombard them with questions and make them look bad?
Well, yes and no. Sometimes it's fairer than most. For example, I hate the guy, but Bill O'Reilly used to have really nice segments with Jon Stewart, and they were actually debating some issues, and I thought it was pretty civil. So I don't think that you should just dismiss Fox News just because they're like the pro-Republican propaganda machine.
Yeah, you should actually consume a lot of their media so that you can know how to debunk them or utilize the actual usable content that they are obligated to report about. So that's how you make matter primers. I think like you can find a lot of resources online as to the specifics. If you're part of a debate organization, you probably have a template. If not, then I could recommend that you start making one now. It's never too late. So another thing you have to have besides matter primers would be general information. So these are things you also print out, like maps. Please, you need to have a map. I've had so many debates where people like do not understand what countries are next to the other, where they do not understand what's in Central Africa or in the Middle East.
Or what Africa is.
So
Africa's a country.
Yeah, a map helps because, for example, you don't know a lot about a particular country, but you know a lot about its neighbor, and you can make arguments about how the neighbor will influence the ongoings of that particular country and etc. Right?
It's a new actor extension.
Yeah, it's a new actor extension. Do not diss it. I've used it many times and it has been effective. So long as I actually know what's next to the country that the debate is about.
I think it's also useful for a lot of like IR debates, because remember there are lots of debates about the Middle East, about borders, and if you look at how the borders are constructed, also in Africa, like there are lots of straight lines because the colonizers in the past didn't really care about how like the communities were organically shaped like in those areas, which is why in Central Africa there are lots of ethnic tensions between the Hutus and the Tutsis because the Belgians didn't care about these things.
Yeah,
so you should care about these things. things.
Yeah, and the more detailed the map, the better. And proper nouns. If you want a list of all the capitals in the world, you should. Or all the current presidents, it would actually really, really help.
Yeah, that was like you make these hacks to make you sound smart. Instead of saying China will do this, you're gonna say, oh, Beijing will do this. Ooh.
Or Xi Jinping, if you actually want to be proper about it.
Beijing.
Yeah.
Washington, D.C. will react in this way.
Yeah, sure. I've never seen that used, but
people use that on articles all the time.
To sound smart. So I guess if debaters want to use that tactic, go. The second method would be targeted news consumption. So if you don't want to make matter primers, then at least make sure that you cover every area possible. So there are many ways to matter load. I usually do country-based matter loading. So what's happening in the US, what's happening in China, what's happening in the Philippines. So I divide my notes and divide the media I consume based on countries so that I can make sure I covered every possible issue in terms of IR. But if it's not IR, then you go theme-based. So
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Theme-based. So like I pick
Pikachu!
Shut up! I pick a theme, for example, like art.
Okay.
And then I look at all the concepts that are around that discuss art. So I think about death of the author. I think about the evolution of art, how art evolves through time. If we're gonna talk about movements, I pick that theme and then I look at how movements are created. And there's a bunch of scholarly articles that don't talk about particular movements, but movements in general. Actually, that's how we like matter load for our own episode.
Yeah.
Like for example, we picked religion. It's like, oh, what concepts are related to religion? And we go like, oh, the Galton's typologies of peace.
Yeah.
We take classes, for example, about the particular theme. Like what we did when we were preparing for Mint, we took up a class on bioethics.
Yeah, so that's another way you can matter load. I guess the last one and the more boring one, I don't do it, is reading thesis. Kyle loves doing this.
I love doing that.
Yeah,
it is amazing. It is so freaking amazing. There are 3 steps. The first step is to find a repository for thesis. So what I used to use was the University of Texas online repository. So just Google that and it's gonna link you to like this vast collection of theses and dissertations. And you can look at each particular subject or theme or department and just like read through it, like how you look through a table of contents. And I was like, oh, this one is interesting. Step 2 is alt tab everything that you find interesting. Step 3 is read all of it, and it'll be so good. Like I particularly love reading dissertations because in dissertations it's longer. They're longer, but the reason why they're longer is because they include a lot of background discussions. So I was reading this one about hip hop politics, the hip hop generation, and their relation to politics. And in the review of related literature, there was a bunch of stuff about cultural studies, pop culture studies as a facet of culture studies, etc. That's where I learned about Theodore Adorno and the Frankfurt School, these types of things. So reading thesis, dissertations, I don't think it's as boring as you portray it to be.
It's a lot of reading. I'm not a fan.
It's a lot of reading, but like that's what matter loading is all about.
I know.
So embrace the struggle, Nina.
Okay.
It's not even supposed to be a struggle.
Okay, I get it. Calm down. As an advocate of passive matter loading, I prefer my method of things. We gave you multiple ways to matter load. Of course, these are just guidelines. If you have your own method of doing things, then please feel free to share them, tweak them. If you learn something, then try applying them to your own life because that will really benefit your debating and your argument making skills and your general knowledge of the world, which is slowly decreasing because of Facebook and a lot of the fake news propaganda machines that we have. So
yeah, did you know that apparently a bunch of
you're ending the segment.
Did you know that a bunch of fake news people were trying to convince everyone else that apparently there are a bunch of Catholic priests who like resorted to witchcraft to make Duterte die?
That's hype.
That's so weird. That's so hype though.
Or you know, if you're not able to matter load, just listen to Kyle all day. Like half of his interjections in this episode have been matter. That's unrelated to matter loading.
Yeah, we should end this episode right now so I can continue my rant on Avatar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's it for this episode. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.